Hey, welcome back to Sober Now. I'm Jim LaPierre. Today I want to talk about how to stop diagnosing yourself. There's an old adage that the physician who treats himself has a fool for a patient. There's also a tendency amongst people in recovery to diagnose themselves, and somehow we have this feeling that if we put a label on it or if we beat ourselves up enough about it, then somehow we'll feel better or we'll be able to have a greater understanding of ourselves. And nothing could be further from the truth. So, folks who work professionally in this field and in others, we really hate resources like WebMD. And I understand that a lot of those sites have value and can give us good information. But if we use them the wrong way, all of a sudden we start deciding that we have certain conditions. And particularly for those of us in addiction recovery, or really in any form of recovery, whether it's an eating disorder or self-harm or anything self-destructive that people like me do to ourselves, we really need to have at least 6 months to a year in recovery before a professional can get an accurate baseline about our mental health. And so a lot of the labels that we tend to put on ourselves are based on what we've seen in television or in movies or what we've learned from a website. And quite often, there's a lot of problems in trying to diagnose ourselves, not the least of which is we're not a fair judge of self. We're overly self-critical, and we tend to find fault in everything that we do. So, common misconceptions that I hear from people. Very, very frequently, people tell me that they're bipolar. And the first question I'll ask them is, can they tell me about a time where they went 2 or 3 days without sleep and didn't feel tired? And then they usually say, well, no. And I say, okay, there's still a small chance that you live with some form of bipolar disorder, but probably not. Chances are it's something else. And the problem with mental health in general is that a lot of conditions have shared symptoms. So it's kind of like if I cough and I sneeze, do I have a cold? Do I have a flu? Do I have pneumonia? Do I have an upper respiratory infection? We need more information, right? Same thing with mental health. A lot of us believe that we're ADD because our thoughts race or because we have a hard time focusing. And sometimes that's true, but more often it's because of anxiety, it's because of things that we're going through situationally or a lot of change happening all at once. Sometimes we're just overwhelmed and struggling to cope. That doesn't mean that we live with a congenital disorder. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with our brain. It means that there's a lot of change and a lot of adjustment that's warranted, that's needed. Anxiety is another one that we tend to label ourselves with. And I've had hundreds of people tell me that they have OCD because they're neat freaks or because they're very super organized or ritualistic. And chances are they're not OCD. To live with obsessive compulsive disorder, well, that involves two main things. The first ones are obsessions, which are thoughts you don't want. And the second one are compulsions, which are things that you don't want to do, but you feel that you must. And so, in the absence of those, there's a really good chance that, sure, you might have some anxiety, you might have some feelings of depression, and how you cope with those might not be healthy. And maybe seeing a counselor, learning from those who have lived experience, working with a coach or a sponsor, all of those things can help us become healthier. But there's really little value in labeling ourselves or trying to treat ourselves. That doesn't work. Einstein said the mindset that created the problem will not be the mindset that creates the solution. So, if you're anything like me, you need to put down websites like WebMD, stop focusing on what the problem is and start looking at what the solutions are. So regardless of what we live with, how can we cope more effectively? How can we be healthier? And the really tough piece for most of us, how do I get out of my own way and let other people help me? That's the hardest one because it's uncomfortable, not because it's complicated. We work so hard to do everything alone because we're afraid to involve other people in that process. But if we can open some doors here and admit that we're struggling, then a million things become possible. So, chances are, whatever you think you live with, you don't. I've said to plenty of people, yes, there's obviously an addiction here, or yes, there's obviously a behavior here that's a problem and needs to change, but everything else can wait. Let's put out the fires, let's deal with the things that we know are problems, and then progressively, as we involve other people in this process, we can get some new tools, we can get some valuable insights, and we can improve our mental health without focusing on what the problem is. So, as always, please give me a like and a subscribe for the videos. Please email me, jim@sobernow.com, and please take excellent care of you. Have a great day.